I'd like to go ahead and begin. Notice is hereby given of a regular meeting of the Board of Directors to be held at 105 Port Isabel Road, Port Isabel, Texas, on April 8, 2020 at the hour of 5:30 p.m. for consideration of the business of the agenda below. Actually, this meeting is being conducted on Zoom. This notice is posted at the office of the district on April 2nd, 2020 at 3 p.m. in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551-041, 551-050, not less than 72 hours to the time of the said meeting. We do have the presence of a quorum. All the board members are either present or on Zoom at this time. I guess, item 2, go ahead and stand for the pledge and invocation. Is that so?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, we'll stand for the I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carlos?
Okay, Eddie.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here, and we ask you for wisdom as we try to make the best decisions possible for our community and our organization. We ask you to guide us in all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Carlos. At this time, we'll move along to item 3, invitation to the audience for public comments. Staff, board, who at this time like to share or discuss anything?
There's
No?
Nothing today?
Okay, we'll move along then to item 5, general manager's report.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, hopefully you can hear me loud and clear now. I just wanted to mention that number 4. Yes, correct. The minutes first. Do you want to go that route?
Excuse me, I did skip item 4. Consider and discuss for possible approval the minutes of the regular meeting for March 25th, 2020. Everyone had a chance to review those?
Yeah.
A motion made by Mr. Starkey for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Avalos. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are. None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, Carlos. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Juan Gonzalez at the wastewater treatment plant acquired his A water license. And just wanted to advise the board on it, that the A license is pretty high license for knowledge at the wastewater treatment. So just wanted to congratulate him today. And we also have a retired employee by name of Jared Martinez that he's been with the district over 20 years, I believe like 24, 25 years altogether. And he just retired and moved on. So congratulations on his retirement too. The next one, next bullet that I have is this coming Friday is Good Friday. So we have the day off. So we accommodated our work hours this week. So we can, everybody works equal amount of hours. So we'll be off. Normally we are all on standby for anything that may happen. If y'all have any questions or comments during that day or the weekend, I'm always available on my cell phone too. Then the next bullet I have there, the COVID-19, we updated it's an update, but we updated our essential infrastructure operations letter for our employees. The last one would expire today. So our next one goes all the way to April 30th, 2020. And this letter will provide backup for and support to the employees when they're driving back and forth to work. So, and then again, we've tried to comply with all the COVID-19, like carefulness and trying to abide by all the rules of the county and of course our own rules, staying away 6 feet from each other. And once we go out of the building, we wear a mask, and sometimes we wear it here inside the building also when we're getting too close to each other. But yes, we're all abiding, and hopefully that God will protect us throughout this time, all the district employees and of course the board members too and their families. Then And on the next bullet that I have here, the water and wastewater rate schedule, I attached it. I believe there was a questions on when the rate schedule kicks in. And we have the updated one for 2019, which was effective September 10th. And then the rest are around the same time, actually, every year. So 2020, it'll be around September the 10th, more or less, for this coming year. And as the board had mentioned, we'll try to suspend that one until further notice for right now.
Wait, extend, do what?
I guess y'all had mentioned something like hold off on it. We're not gonna bring this back until closer to September, see what the board thinks about it. There's nothing that we can do right now.
But you just said we're going to
Well,
suspend.
actually, I'm sorry about that. It's my mistake. It's just hold off on it until September. When we get closer to September, we'll bring it back again and see what the board thinks on it. So, my bad. Okay, now that's it on that. Any other questions that y'all may have?
Yes, he's on the line now. No,
Noe?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so you're on. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, is that it, Carlos?
That's it for me. Any questions you may have, go ahead right now. But that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll move along to item 6. Discuss and approve. Is there a question? Okay. We'll move along to item 6. Discuss and approve per bond council and order postponing the bond election of the Laguna Madre Water District from May 3rd, 2020 to November 2020 pursuant to a proclamation issued by the governor of the state of Texas dated March 18, 2020 and addressing other matters incidental thereunto. Any questions, comments?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I can't, was that a motion made by Herb and a seconded by Alex?
Correct.
Okay, are all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carries. Thank you. Alex and Herb, if you guys could turn your mic on, it's hard to hear.
Okay, I'll get it closer.
There
Can you
we
hear
go.
me now?
Yes, better, thank you.
Okay,
Moving on to item number 7, consider and discuss for possible approval of temporarily suspending section 1.4.8 disconnection and penalties on the late fees corresponding to the service policy for Laguna Madre Water District until further notice due to the COVID-19.
Right, on this one here, that we had not presented it to the board yet, and we have held off on it temporarily until we see what the board decides on doing. But we have to bring it up to the board to suspend if the board decides to suspend it. It's for non-payment, not to cut off their water, and not include any penalties on them for late charges.
I believe I heard that the PUC chairman, just the day after we talked about this 2 weeks ago, did an order statewide suspending any disconnections.
That's more or less correct, yes.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, that's
You,
correct.
uh,
No late fees. You shouldn't shut them off. And that's correct.
Is there a window time frame on this? Because it's kind of open-ended by adopting that. I mean, I'm not, just kind of clarification of,
At this time, I don't think there's a time limit on it. I could look at it, but it's open-ended for now.
Right, and it does mention there until further notice. So hopefully it won't last too long, but it depends on the COVID virus itself.
who put out the information? You said?
Public Utility Commission, the PUC
PUC?
at the state level.
So can we, can we make it so that we look at it when they reissue another statement in regards to then letting the fees or just taking them off the table for that matter?
Yes, I'll be watching that. And when that happens, I'll bring it before the board immediately.
Thank you.
okay, so do we need to take action on this or we're going to approve it as is?
I'll move to approve.
Yes.
Motion for approval made by Mr. Avalos,
Second.
seconded by, was that Jason?
Houston.
Houston,
Mr. Houston, excuse me.
yes.
Are all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They are. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Let's move along to item number 8, Director of Operations Report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the report for March is pretty much as it's been for the last few months. March, again, in comparison this year to last year, has gone down. And the distribution side has gone down by 91 calls. The big difference, of course, was on the informational part, where it dropped down by 95, where it was 112 calls they took last year, compared to 17 this year. And the rest of them, there have been a few other changes that went up and down, but that was the biggest one on the distribution side. On the collection side, oops, sorry. On the collection side, again, there was a change by about 18, and we had 15. It went up this time compared to last year, and most of it was in the preventive maintenance, where it went up by 15. They went out there and did more preventive maintenance than they had in the past, and it did drop down by 4 on the sewer backups. So that's your biggest two difference there. I don't know if anybody has any questions on the report.
Back to the water.
Yes, sir.
Have we had any problems with the new meters?
Problems as far as no, we haven't. The only problems is that, well, that's on the customer side, thinking that that they're getting overcharged, but that has pretty much subsided. They've already pretty much accepted the fact that the new meters are more accurate, and
So we have a high degree of confidence as to their reliability.
yes, sir. At this point, I would say yes. Any other questions?
On the disconnects, that's just the visitors, the winter Texan visitors. Is that what that represents?
Some of them are yes, on when visitors, others also where they leave, and some of them change, move from one house to another apartment or whatever.
Well, that would be under occupant change.
Occupant change, right?
But, yeah, I'm referring to the disconnect.
Yes.
That was my
That-
question. Yeah, last year we had 24 at this time, but this year we have 40.
Right, there was an increase there. And again, that's a combination. I would say that's a combination where you've had people that have left, especially, I guess, now with the virus and everything being shut down at the island, I would imagine that that's probably where
Okay.
most of it was at.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. The second part of my report dealt with the,
I'm sorry, can I interrupt real quick?
yes, sir.
I just want to go back to Mr. Houston's question. He asked if we had a high degree of certainty that our new water meters are accurate. How would we have any idea if they are not accurate?
They go out there and test them. We've had quite a few requests to get the meters tested, and they go out there and test them. In the past, when they tested the meters, some of them were as low as 89% and as high as 100% or 99%. But on an average, they were testing it around 93, 94%. And these new meters are testing pretty much at 99, 100%.
So we have a special procedure that we do that tells us exactly how much water is flowing through it and then compares that versus what the meter is saying?
Yes, sir. Pretty much what they do is they go out there and they have a 1 gallon, you can say bucket, I guess, you say, and what they do is disconnect the meter from the angle vial, and they run the meter or the water into this bucket, and as soon as it marks, they check it out again against what was in the bucket, and it'll tell you the accuracy on the on the water that they pump out compared to what was in the bucket. They tested in, tested back out.
High volume, like a high volume pressure, forcing it through the meter.
It's just a matter of opening the meter and
I'm
putting the
curious.
water into the bucket. And once that bucket fills up, it'll show where the meter, if it's at 1 gallon or less than a gallon.
Is this like a technical way to do it, or is this just sort of like
No, that's the technical way to do it. That's the way it's pretty much done in the industry.
Just the reason I'm asking, and I'll give you the floor in a second, Carlos, is a 1%. If we're off by 1%, as you guys all know, when you made the motion to purchase these meters, 1% is a lot of money. So I'd hope we're at 100%, considering we spent several $million on it.
Right. The meters that I've seen tested, they have been pretty 100%, Robert. The thing that they do is they use a meter tester. They connect the meter tester to the meter. So they run water through the meter tester, and at the same time, the meters are also registering. So they can do 1 gallon. They do 10 gallons, like a low flow, high flow, depending on how much water they need to throw out, like 10, 15 gallons the most. And that's compared the meter tester to the meter itself. And that's the way they do it with a meter tester. Now, there's another standard container that they have 10 gallons, and they also do that one, which is you fill it up the 10-gallon mark, and then you look at the meter and compare that. And you can do that like in percentages, like divide, and then find out the percent on it. But it is right at the 10-gallon mark, standard. There's nothing that's going to deviate that. So once you hit the 10 mark, you see the meter also, and it'll tell you 10 gallons. So we have a couple of ways of doing the meter testing.
Thanks, Carlos. The 10-gallon one seems a little bit more useful in terms of a test than like the 1 gallon. So I hope that's what we're using.
Correct. And the 1 gallon is used for low flows, like small leaks. And then you do the high flow with the 10 gallons.
All right. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate the info.
Sorry, I wasn't clear on that. The second part of my report dealt with the new coronavirus contingency schedule that we have. And basically, the current situation with the operation department is a matter where departments are reaching out more to each other in order to perform their daily work. Although deferred maintenance is gradually increasing, every effort is being made to keep it to a minimum. For instance, the wastewater department takes care of the lift stations and sewer plant. The department has 14 positions, but only 12 on the contingency schedule and 2 vacant positions. Currently, there are 11 active employees and 1 lift station operator who has been out on sick leave, but is due to return next week. On the active positions, there are 5 employees on the first half of the week and 6 on the second part of the week. All operators have been instructed to wear their protective personal equipment that has been provided, such as masks, gloves, boots, caps, and hard hats. Currently, there is 1 operator per plant, but alternate is needed to help each other out as one of the sewer plants. Needless to say, the sewer plant's clarifiers are being attended. Therefore, no plant is being neglected to keep it operational. The lift stations are currently addressed by 1 employee and 1 assistant manager. The deferred maintenance is gradually growing, although not entirely due to the work schedule. Some of the work not being attended to on a regular basis includes painting, cleaning floats in the lift stations, fixing fences in the lift stations, and cleaning the sludge beds. Employees are asked to come in on an as-need basis and take care of immediate needs such as sludge beds or changing out 2-ton chlorine containers. And the water plant currently has 13 employees and are being scheduled at different times due to the shift work that they have. With water plant 1 down, all employees are assisting with the operations at water plant 2. In an effort to start Water Plant 1, the construction department worked with the water department in locating Water Plant 1's 10-inch and 14-inch raw water lines to determine where the injection points for the chlorine dioxide should be installed in order to get Water Plant 1 operational. This will be reported in more details on board agenda item number 9 by Charles Ortiz with the Freeze and Nichols engineering report on Water Plant 1. On a side note, Water Plant 1 has gone through some repairs over its years and maintenance provided on an as-need basis. Although Water Plant 1 was turned off in 2016 due to the new microfiltration system and Water Plant 2, we were trying to determine why a 5 Mgd plant would produce more than 2.9 MGDs. So in July of 2017, the construction department drilled 481-inch holes on the troughs in an attempt to increase capacity. The cost of this repair was over $2,400 for drills and bits, but the plant was never turned on again. A previous repair on Water Plant 1 was performed in 2014, which included chipping, grinding, and sanding to remove the rust on the clarifier. The rehab also included fabricating and replacing some angle iron, as well as prime coating and painting. The cost of this rehab was $4,656. These types of repairs were performed by the water plant operators annually during the slow season. The maintenance department. The maintenance department has 3 employees where they split the work between themselves. They have been able to keep up with the vehicle repairs now that they have newer vehicles in place. However, the department keeps up with the regular vehicle maintenance and doing oil changes, tire rotations, brake job on all vehicles, and performing regular maintenance on heavy equipment. The lab department had 3 employees and had asked for assistance from the wastewater department due to the employee who had been out. The employee is now back at work. The lab has been able to keep up with the testing and required by TCEQ. They have also been able to keep up with the shift work. The collection department has 6 employees who have split the crew in accordance with the contingency schedule. However, they continue to perform the preventive maintenance on sewer lines, line spots, and sewer backups as they occur. They also work on sewer taps as requested. They did have to call an employee on standby to come in when one of the other employees that was on the emergency call-out schedule had to work 9 hours one night because of a water line break at South Padre Island, and later that night, there was a sewer spill due to a clay sewer line that broke in Port Isabel. The distribution department has 8 employees. They have 4 on and 4 off during the normal work week. They also have had to fix a couple of water line breaks during the day and have had to cut down on water taps installations on a day-to-day basis. The assistant distribution manager was on call on the water line break in South Padre Island and the sewer line break in Port Isabel. This caused an employee on standby to be called in. In similar case, standby employees were called in when the 16-inch water line under the bridge going to South Padre Island was repaired due to it leaking. This line was previously repaired, but the clamp that was used did not hold up, so a larger clamp had to be used the second time. And the construction department has 7 employees, but only 6 are active on schedule. 1 employee is an Army Reserve and has been on active duty for almost 2 years, and since they were activated by the governor. They also have 3 on and 3 off. The construction department has managed to keep on track while working on one project at a time. They worked in finding the new raw water line at Plant 1, finished installing barbed wire at Andy Bowie fence due to the TCEQ inspection to be performed tomorrow. They helped the distribution department with scaffolds that were needed to do the repair on the 16-inch water line under the bridge. They have been asked to do small jobs such as welding the gates at the warehouse. In conclusion, all the departments have managed to keep the water district operational and are very conscious of the work that needs to be completed. They are very aware of the need to take the extra precautionary steps to ensure that we keep the coronavirus out. They are practicing the social distancing and only have one person per unit. Departments in need of a vehicle are being loaned a vehicle by another department that can spare it. The drivers sanitize their vehicles daily. They have masks and gloves to protect them. Employees know that when they are off, they're on standby and are ready to come in if called. They are very appreciative that the board has taken the step to implement the contingency schedule and help them and their families stay safe from COVID-19. That concludes my report. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I just got a comment. Could you email me your information you just gave us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Robert. A nice report.
Thank you.
Well stated. And of course, we always are doing the best we can for our staff, and we appreciate their work with the district. Let's move along to item number 9, district engineers report. Charles?
All right. Yeah, I guess the first item here is the bond election delay and the impact on the schedule of capital projects. So as you're aware, we've postponed our election from May 2nd to November 3rd. And so some of the projects we were holding off on, it's basically the main one is at Water Plant 1 and this large clarifier reconstruction where it's really not advisable to delay proceeding on that project for 6 months due to the election. And so I guess 2 items. Okay, can you hear me from here? Should I come up?
I'm just curious if the public can hear you.
Oh, yeah, I'm on the mic.
Oh, okay, good.
That's much better, Charles.
Okay, is this good? Okay, so just to reiterate, in case you couldn't hear, the first item is bond election delay and impact on the schedule of capital projects. As you're aware, we've had the election postponed from May 2nd to November 3rd. And so one of the critical projects that really shouldn't be deferred for that timeline is rebuilding that large clarifier at Water Plant 1. And so the items to consider on that one for schedule would be looking at a possible reimbursement resolution to at least have something in place to, in the event that we do get the bond election passed, we have that opportunity to recover those funds from our general fund balance, from this authorization we may get in the future bond election. And then the other aspect of it is just getting moving on it, as at least for an engineering design standpoint over the summer, and have it ready to be out for bid by the end of the year. And so that's really the main project I see that we shouldn't really, keep on hold as the election's being deferred. So I guess part of this is just to try to get some feedback from the board, or some other input on what direction we should take for that project. If you have any comments on that one.
Yes, Charles.
On which particular, on your first bullet point?
Oh, well, just the first bullet point. Oh, yeah, I guess it's the second one, the Water Plant 1 large clarifier. I mean, we're talking about, there is an estimate here. This project cost is $1,343,000, with the engineering, design, construction management being $176,000 of that cost. And so at this point, we're looking at, requesting to proceed with engineering only ahead of the bond election. And I guess in that case, it's a soft cost, so it doesn't necessarily require a reimbursement agreement. I guess that's the guidance we've been getting from bond counsel. But from a strategic standpoint, we still may want to have a reimbursement agreement in place, but only authorize the engineering fee at this time to start design. And then when construction comes due in December, January, as we call that election in August, then we can look at increasing the authorization amount for a reimbursement request after we've had the referendum in August for the November election. So those are ideas to consider on how to proceed with this one project task.
And then
I think the engineering has to proceed regardless. It's going to have to be done one way or the other.
Right.
How and when it's paid for is a separate question. But I would go ahead with the engineering anyway.
thank you. We'll bring some more information at the next board meeting so we can at least move forward on that one. And we're looking at a reimbursement anyhow towards the end, closer to the bond election. That's one thing that we'd like to start on and get it going with the engineering, because it takes like three months maybe.
Yeah, I
3
mean,
months on that part only just to get everything going. And then would be closer to the bond election by that time.
Yeah, two aspects to consider is the procurement. If we wanna have the engineering eligible for
Can you speak up, Charles? It's not
yeah,
good.
yeah. One aspect to consider is procurement. As far as if we want to have these engineering services reimbursable, then we want to, do the disadvantaged business enterprises, show our good faith effort to procure engineering services. And so, but then we have the time of getting that proposal on the street and awarded. That would, delay getting into starting a contract with an engineering, unless, or if we choose to use our local funds for that engineering contract, then we just, can request the task authorization from Friesen Nichols and proceed with it being out of our fund balance. So that's another, option to consider if you want to have it one way versus the other.
Okay, we'll bring back the next board meeting.
I've got a
information
couple, I got a
with those
couple of
questions.
Yeah, I got a
Yes,
couple
go
of
ahead.
questions. I guess you addressed one of them being how, or if we get paid. I guess the other one would be that, and having read some of this material, some of my concern is in timelines. There are no guarantee of these timelines or cost for that matter. What do we do about that? There are no guarantee of these timelines or cost for that matter. Correct. What do we do about that? Correct.
Can't hear anyone speak. Please use the mic.
Can you hear me?
Mutes themselves.
Can you hear me, Scott?
I can hear you, Alex. I can't hear. I think it was Charles or someone was speaking.
Okay, well, my comment was that some of my concerns are with the timelines. We're being told that there are no guarantees in the timelines and or cost on this project if we move forward. I understand that it needs to get done, but I don't want to write a blank check here. We need to make sure that there are some limits as to what's going to go on, and how long it's going to take. If the purpose of doing this is to get it up and ready for the project, then it should have a timeline. And if it exceeds that timeline, I would like it in writing that somebody is going to make up the difference.
Those are excellent points, Alex.
Yeah,
Have it in writing, that's all.
Yeah, it'll be part of when we do the task authorization for engineering contract. I mean, those schedules will be included into that.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with the schedules. I mean, I understand that there can be some delays. My concern is that who's going to pay for that delay? That's what I need addressed. Thank you. I just have one more question, I guess, for Mr. Hinojosa. Are you available?
Noe Hinojosa?
I am.
Hey, Noe, do you see any issue with pulling this particular element out of the project and moving forward with this at this time?
I think either option is fine. 167,000, I think, was the number that was given to me. I think you want to be nimble. If you have a relationship with Friesen Nichols and that's someone you want to work with throughout all the projects, that's one way of doing it, by you controlling the project with your engineer. Another is to preserve the option of adopting a reimbursement resolution that will be prepared by Noel Valdez, Bond Counsel, at your next meeting, so that you can at least have that option there for you, where you can reimburse yourself for those $160,000 or $170,000 from bond proceeds in case you need cash for some event that we can see now happening in August or September. So either option is fine, but I would caution you that I'd rather you have the option to reimburse yourself so that you can, execute that option if you need money down the road. And the money coming from the Water Development Board, I suspect, is going to be pretty cheap done in December. So my recommendation this time is that you go ahead and procure for the engineering services, and at the next meeting adopt a reimbursement resolution, so that when you borrow the money from the Water Development Board sometime in December or January of next year, that you can look back and say, oh, by the way, I can reimburse myself for 170 for engineering services, and my cash position is such that I need it. If your cash position is such that you don't need it, then don't do it. But it's just an option. It's just a tool.
And then one of the concerns that we had mentioned was coming from NOE, that August, September, hurricane season is around, and be concerned about it, just that.
Yeah.
That way, if we need
Reserve
those
our
funds
cash
back.
on hand. I mean, that's as everyone is. We need to, be cautious about our spending and saving. And, it'll be interesting what our revenues will be coming in the next 6 to 8 weeks also.
Yes, sir.
Right. And that also affects your bond rating going forward too.
I can't wait for 2020 to be over.
That's two of us.
Okay.
Yes, I suppose to address the.
Keep the loudness. Don't
Yeah.
go down after a while.
All right, I suppose the last item, since I did have the bullet point on here for Long Island Village water and sewer improvements, I was just wondering if we're gonna have any opinion on that with the change in the bond election. If we still want to defer that until after an election, or if we want to look at that this summer, from.
As far as I'm concerned, we've always told them that would be deferred until after the bond election.
Okay, so we stick to it.
I mean, speaking for myself.
You're correct. I support that, Herb.
I too support that.
I agree.
Right,
Too
yeah, that
many
was the
irons
other.
in the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that concludes the report. Those are just the
Thank you,
talking
Charles.
points.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate the updates. Let's move along to item 10, Director of Finance report.
Okay. The first thing I wanted to discuss was something that I was asked to discuss the fund balance. So currently our fund balance in the general fund is $7.7 million. Now, that is approximately about a year's worth of operating revenues, not taking into account funds that are used to pay our revenue bonds.
So the 7.7 is all that unrestricted or part of that restricted?
Part of it is restricted.
How much?
Non-spendable. So 2.2 million is committed for a particular purpose. So unassigned is 6.6 million. So yes. So unassigned at the end of the fiscal year was 6.6 million.
At the end of last September?
As of September 30th.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
But you just said 2.2
Yes.
was.
I'm sorry. I was mistaken.
Okay.
2.2 is committed, restricted for bond payments, current bond payments.
Yes, but in the general fund, what's unassigned is 6.6 million.
If you have 7.7 minus 2.2 would be 5.5.
Yes,
You
you
made a
can.
mistake on that.
The 2.2 is not correct.
Okay.
Sounds like it's more 1.1, correct?
That's right.
1.1 restricted leaves us 6.6. And just to clarify for me, 7.7, you said roughly is a year's worth of operating expenses, but this does not account for expenditures that we incur. You mentioned revenue bond, but there's other ones. So is that the 1.1 that you're trying to represent?
Yes. So our projected expenditures this year was about $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difference between the 7 and the 10 is the
Mhm.
amounts that are going for capital projects and for the revenue bonds.
So our operating annual budget right now is $10 million. Is that correct?
Our total budget is $10 million.
But you're saying that roughly 8 million could cover us for a year to provide water to our customers. Would that also be correct?
Yes, $8 million would cover our operations only, but would not be enough to cover our revenue bonds.
And I need 1.1 to cover our revenue bonds. Is that correct?
Revenue bonds this year is 1.345.
So then 900,345. So 9.345 would be essentially where we need to be for the year, correct?
Yes.
Which brings our monthly overhead roughly 778, 750. I mean, that's just basically taking that 9.34 million, dividing it by 12. We come up with roughly, let's call it 780,000.
Yes.
Conservative estimate. Okay. And that was really the number that I think that we were looking just to see in the event, worst case scenario, we got to provide water for a district for a month or two. I just want to know, what would that number look like? How would that negatively impact, our general fund? And you've given me that information. So thank you for that.
About a month's worth of revenue is approximately $800,000. That's about approximately 1 month's worth of revenue that we charge right now.
That's revenue. I'm looking for just, like we're making a little bit there.
Yes,
we got a little
month's worth of expenses.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Our expenses still look like they're close to that number. I mean, I'm calculating they're right at 780. So
that's right. That's
okay.
Right. Okay. The next bullet point. Monthly revenue. That was what I said, about $800,000 is approximately our revenue for April, and for May that was approximately what we expected to receive. And June would be about $1 million is what we would be expected to receive. Now, regarding this COVID-19, we're definitely not going to get there. I just got the numbers for our latest billing for South Padre Island. This is for the period that ended September 30th, March 30th. And we actually are not seeing any effects yet. We're still up on the billing 14%. You can attribute that to our rate increase that over last year. So South Padre Island through March 30th was up 14%. I expect that to go down significantly next month. So we still have not yet seen the effects of the lower consumption due to the lack of commercial activity on South Padre Island and throughout the area.
Eddie, do you have actual numbers for just March and how much less actual water was used this March compared to last March? I'm sure it's probably in here, but be quick if you just tell me.
The consumption numbers, the consumption is still was still up.
But do you have just March?
So this March versus last March, consumption was up 7 million gallons.
Why do you think our consumption was up this year versus last year in March? That seems crazy.
If I may interrupt, it might be our smart meter system as well is more accurately accounting for consumed water, and there also could be so it could be a delay in the impact. Now I know we're trying to compare March to March, but
yes,
really March bills are representative of the previous month. I would think. I don't know if that's correct. I know billing, when we're talking finances, there's going to be a delay. I don't know actual consumption, if there's also a delay in that data.
Yeah, consumption has been up all year long. So people have been using water more this year. That can be attributed to weather. It can be attributed to the way the economy was looking good throughout the year this year. A lot more tourism on South Padre Island. Now all that is going to change. We know because of the COVID-19. But so far, consumption this year has been above last year's numbers.
And if I may interject again, the first 2 weeks of March, we weren't in the state that we are in now with the shelter and in place. That wasn't enacted until 2 weeks ago today. So again, I think we'll see more, we'll see numbers that are more representative of our current condition in April than we will potentially in March. And then furthermore, there's obvious more attention being paid to, washing of hands. And I'm sure, I'm taking more showers in my house. We're just paying closer attention to being clean. So, fear, oftentimes will, dictate behavior, which is going to cause them to use more water. To wash their hands more and so forth. So commercial activity will definitely, we'll see that. And I think we'll see that more in April, unfortunately.
Yes, I was also asked to see if I could break down the numbers by commercial versus residential activity. There wasn't a large, there wasn't any difference between commercial activity and residential activity. But there were a few categories that did see reductions as compared to last year for March. The categories that were reduced were mobile homes, hotel motels, and restaurants. Those were the categories that were affected.
Especially restaurants are down and making a lot less revenue. So we'll have a true results at the end of or the beginning of May when we get all the numbers for April, and we will probably see a drop.
We will. And if I may interject one more time, the reasons, I think these discussions are important is as we proceed through this unique time, two things are going to need to be discussed. Next bullet point's one of them, but we need to look at our annual budget as one that needs to be a little more flexible. We might need to look at, potentially cutting some expenditures that we were, agreeing to spend at the beginning of the year, because now revenue is being cut, and so therefore, we're not going to meet that number that we projected in January, December of last year, at the end of this fiscal year. So we need to start being proactive about that and looking at that. And I would encourage our finance department to look at that and capital improvements, that we were considering that maybe could be pushed back. We need to look at that and start presenting, those kinds of ideas, I guess.
Yes. You are correct on that part. As less water consumption is treated, the less chemicals we're going to be buying and purchasing. So we'll see a reduction in our cost, our expenditures on that part, chemicals and possibly electricity also. But we do keep an eye on our expenditures and revenue the last 6 months of the year, mostly to be on the safe side. But we'll keep monitoring that as much as we can and trying to bring to the board updates on them if we see anything drastically that changes. Less or less or more, either way, we'll bring it up to the board so y'all can be aware. And yes.
Last, I'm sorry. he's not in the microphone right now, so if I could just, if he wants to say something in the microphone, that's great. But I want to say I would rather speak in terms of money than in terms of water, if that makes sense. So, and as we continue to have these meetings and have these financial reports, I would encourage us to say, this is where we were in the month of April last year. We had 800,000 revenue last year, whatever, be less than that because we didn't have smart meters. And this year we had 640,000. So that's 160 loss in this hypothetical example that we would need to start to consider to account for as we move forward. So as we get financial updates moving forward, I would encourage us to consider the comparison of where we were, or dare I say, where we projected to be and where we actually are, so that we can start making some decisions.
Yeah, but Ms. Charles, if I could add some examples, like say water plant 2 at the high service pumps, we're looking at adding some VFDs. So, the Titan Marines, we're definitely going to defer that project. That's about what 200,000 or so, and so that's one example where we can defer a project, so we don't have those. And then the other part of it is our lift station rehab with that Series 2019 revenue. I mean, since that's already a revenue note with a fixed repayment schedule, I mean, we can proceed on that job without having any impacts on our annual revenue.
Yes.
Little side note, Charles's microphone might be the worst one in the room. There's a lot of interference. I don't know if I don't know if sharing one is the smart idea, but just to note.
Does this improve anything?
That's a lot better, but just
All right.
pay attention not to speak directly into it. I hate for you guys to be irresponsible with microphone sharing, but
we got it.
I liked where your head was at from what I gathered there. You're already looking at some big ticket items that we could, get away with, kicking down the road a little bit. Because the one thing I don't want to do, just as my position, in my opinion, is I don't want our employees to suffer financially, and I don't want our consumers to suffer, as long as we can help it. I want to be able to provide water and provide employment for our district for as long as we possibly can. And as we start to see the effects of our lack of revenue stream, we need to consider how we can protect those two entities. And I'll quit hijacking the meeting now. I'll mute myself.
Okay. The next bullet point I was going to discuss would be I was asked at the last meeting to bring a report about possibly setting up something for a program for deferred assistance, assistance to our customers. At this point, we can discuss, but I thought a program that the Public Utility Commission has begun would be a good place to start our discussion. Now they are trying to, they set up a program for both electric and water. Electric is by far more expensive than water. But in addition to stopping disconnections for non-payment and penalties, what they decided to do was to create a list of people who are suffering unemployment, and they targeted their assistance to residential customers only. And they the people that have suffered unemployment are being added to this list, and they have 30 days to turn in proof of that they qualified for economic assistance from the Texas Workforce Commission, and they are going to help pay down those people's partially pay their bills. And the way that they're financing this program is through a new surcharge that they're charging everybody else. So all the people that can pay are going to be paying a new surcharge, and then they're going to use the money from that program to help the what they call their low income list people.
We did quite research. We had both our bond counsel and our legal counsel here, Brian, and then also our finance advisor. We all did some research, and on some of our bond covenants, there's information in there that kind of mentions that we cannot give water away in one way, but then towards the end, it mentions another clause. Mr. Noel Valdez, do you have the information available?
I do, Carlos.
Okay.
I hope you all can hear me. And again, this is Noel Valdez with McCall, Parkerson, Horton Service Bond Counsel to the district. Yes, we did take a look at the direction of staff. We took a look at your bond covenants, and I'll summarize by saying that there's a covenant in your revenue order that is standard in the industry that provides a promise to your bondholders that you will not provide free service. And like I said, that's industry standard in revenue bond ordinances. So that means that revenues have to be billed, they have to come in, and they then go through your flow of funds. And so your first bucket on your flow of funds is payment of maintenance and operation expenses. Second is the payment of your upcoming debt service payments. Third is replenishment of your reserve funds to the extent that they need replenishment. And lastly, the bucket that they go to is to the payment is to the payment of the amounts required for any lawful purpose, is the exact language. So although the district cannot give free service, perhaps with that last bucket for any lawful purpose, it can get creative with regard to assistance payments. But that's what the bond covenants require. I will also say that, as you know, the bond covenants require that rates and charges be charged on a monthly basis to pay M&O expenses and coverage on your outstanding parity bonds. And I can defer to Brian, but I mean, that's what your bond covenants require. So then any other type of program would have to be in compliance, or any type of financial assistance program would have to be in compliance with those bond covenants.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, any information that you want to add to that one?
I mean, I think he has the right information. I don't have any question as to his knowledge of the bond covenants and what they require. So we talked about it. We talked about with the district. I can tell you that what a lot of other, I represent some water supply corporations, and they're not quite as restricted. They're a little bit more independent, sort of than from some restrictions. They're quasi-governmental entities, but what they're doing is they're following the PUC order, and they're not disconnecting anyone. But whenever this, and we don't know when it's going to end or when there's going to be an order lifting that. But I think the plan is then to have those people enter into payment plans with no interest and no penalties for something that's reasonable to them. And so that's one thing that's going on out there. But as far as what you guys want to do with your funds and what the bonds allow, and whether we can get creative with that clause or not, we probably need to see what's going on everywhere else around in the country and see people are doing that too. And I'm sure bond counsel will be well aware of what's going on with in particular to that.
Absolutely.
We're not going to suspend anybody's service. It seems like to me we could be premature in making any decisions. I would suggest we just wait, see what the delinquencies go up to. Then, if it needs to be addressed, it needs to be addressed. But the bottom line is no one's going to have their water cut off.
Right. Yes, sir, Mr. Avalos.
Yeah, I've got a, I've got a comment, I guess. What about if we use the deposits that people have in their accounts? Is it possible to do that? To use those monies to help them out?
The deposits are there, if people, uh, get behind on their payments, uh, the deposits can help, pay some of that cost. But yeah, that's already a normal part of our collection process. When somebody has a big bill and they're not unable
Right.
to pay, let's say they
I guess what I'm asking is, can we apply that going forward? Is there monies there from people that perhaps will now fall back that we can use their deposit to pay? So that's normally what we would do first, is what you're saying.
yeah, if somebody's unable to pay, the deposit is there, but we usually, after 6 months of, I think it's 6 months of a good payment history, then we refund that deposit. So there's a lot of accounts that don't have a
That don't
deposit.
have the deposit, okay. I guess my question would be, because you alluded to charging others to finance others, what if we use that pool of money that is sitting there? And discuss that with those customers, that if we could use it for that purpose. Because that's actually what we were talking about
probably,
earlier, in a sense,
I
by
have,
implementing a surcharge, which I really don't agree with, to be honest with you.
You can't use someone else's deposit to pay someone else's bill.
Okay,
correct. Yeah, those accounts that each customer has, it's their account. It's
obviously, we would not do
in-
it without their permission.
Of
but
course.
that was what I was alluding to.
but those accounts are they belong to each of the customers.
Correct.
It's not. I think those are restricted. If I'm
Yeah.
correct on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they,
they're
that money
restricted to
doesn't
that.
belong to us, it belongs to those customers. So we can only give it back to them.
I
If
know
they-
that
if-
I provide with the legal information that we can use that fourth clause. I did come up with some information that we can provide, but I will definitely bring it at a later date, because I don't think it's the right time to discuss this one yet. But I do have some information on that.
Well, we would, it might not be the right time, but that shouldn't keep us from preparing for that day.
Right.
Okay,
And
This one is like
okay.
it is a reasonable plan that we've discussed. I've discussed it with my finance advisor, and he said it looks like pretty good.
Okay.
So we'll bring it back at another date.
Carlos,
Yes, sir.
I have one question, Carlos. I heard you mention something about the Workforce Commission letters. I don't think you can't require someone to provide that letter for payment assistance. If I remember earlier in the beginning of this discussion, you said something about following the PUC and then having the Workforce Commission letters for people that are either on assistance or on unemployment. You can't require people to have those letters.
I think Eddie mentioned that one.
According to the PUC's program, it says that within 30 days of being provisionally added to the list, you'll need to provide documentation of your qualification for unemployment benefits from the Texas Workforce Commission to the low income list administrator, so that you can be officially added to the list.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Any other questions or comments?
I got a comment. Carlos, I'm intrigued by the information that you've accumulated to provide. Obviously, now is not the appropriate time. I lean more towards Mr. Houston's comments. You know, we're not turning off water. We're not charging late fees. I think that's a huge milestone for this district today. But I would be open to a workshop or another meeting to discuss what you've accumulated, to discuss what we're talking about in regards to deferred assistance. Because there is very much a demographic that exists within our district that is going to be suffering, and they already are. And you know, And from what I gathered from our legal advice regarding this, we can't be in the pro bono business because the corner that we're painted into by our bond responsibilities. So I want to honor those and not break that. But at the same time, I don't want certain demographics in our community 6 months, 9 months down the road when this thing passes to have a $600, $700, $900 bill, along with all the other bills. So if there's anything we can do to be proactive in regards to assisting those people, I would be all ears and available at a time, that works for everybody else to talk about how we can help. So thank you everyone for bringing all the math today and all the information. Whatever the PUC is doing in regards to this topic, I'm an advocate of mirroring that. And that's all I got. Thanks.
I also want to correct, I misspoke about the deposit. It's not 6 months of good payment history. It's 18 months of good payment history.
Is that it?
Okay. Are you?
That's it.
Go along to-
I have also been monitoring the CARES Act to see if there's anything in there that would benefit us, but as of this time, I haven't found anything that would help us. I did find where businesses, if they get money in the form of a loan and they use that money to pay their utilities, that money turns into a grant and they don't have to pay that back. So I think that's possibly why the PUC is not doing any assistance for businesses. They're only targeting theirs to residential customers.
You're correct. Okay, does that conclude?
Yeah, that concludes my Director of Finance report.
Thank you very much. Let's move along to item 11. Consider and discuss for possible approval of the financial reports for February 2020. Any comments, questions? Everyone had a chance to review them? Is that?
I don't have anything to add.
I'll move to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Avalos for approval.
Second.
Second made by Mr. Houston. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Let's move along to item 12. Consider and discuss for possible approval the purchase of 2 mag meters.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's Enrique Samaniego, purchasing agent. We have a couple of service orders that need mag meters. This purchase, it's a single source. So the staff recommendation, it's the board approval of the purchase of the meters with Ferguson for $12,738.
Anyone have any questions? Do we need to do these right now? Or I mean, is it a 911 or?
Robert, do you know about the need for these?
Are these
My
meters?
understanding on the meters is that they are for customers, so we are going to get reimbursed on these meters.
Move to approve.
Second.
For approval by Mr. Avalos, second by Mr. Starkey. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Let's move along to item 13. Consider and review expenditures from March 16th, 2020 through March 31st, 2020.
Move we acknowledge.
Motion to acknowledge by Mr. Houston.
Second.
Second.
Second acknowledgement by Mr. Starkey. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
Are none opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Let's move along to item 14. Executive session permitted by the Open Meetings Act, VTCA Government Code Section 551001 at sequence under Section 551071, consultation with attorney, discussion on FEMA related to Hurricane Dolly 2008 payment plan for recoupment of funds request.
Move to go into executive session.
A motion made by Mr. Starkey for executive session, second by Mr. Avalos. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are. Anyone that's not associated with this executive session item, if they could please excuse themselves. We'll take about a 2-minute recess and proceed as directed.
We could have 5 minutes, please.
5 minutes, please.
So
5 minutes, okay.
Yes.
Need a motion to come out of executive session at 6:56 PM.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion made by Mr. Avila, seconded by Mr. Starkey. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
We're out of executive session. Item 15, consideration and action on executive sessions. If necessary, we're just going to proceed as directed. And Daisy, for the record, I did not enter what time we went into executive session.
6:39.
Okay, so for the record, so I guess that takes us to item 16. We'll adjourn this meeting at 6:57 PM.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, adjournment by Mr. Starkey, acknowledged.
Second,
And who is that?
Dr. Lalonde.
Dr. Lalonde. Okay,
Boom.
meeting is adjourned. I'd like to wish everyone the best. Stay safe and stay healthy. And until next time.